But myself, I mean, I'm planning on buying it and holding it because I think that the TAM, the total addressable market, is huge because he's got so much. He's 10 years ahead, and this is not my research. I listened to Kathy Wood and others that say his rocket technology is 10 years ahead of like Bezos and, I don't know, Virgin Galactic, if they're still even in the game. All right. Tony Renato back in action. All right, here we go. We're testing again. Just new settings. Different settings. These are actually some of the original settings I finally got to, and I thought, it might look okay. And then I did some more research and then found some different ways to set it up. So needless to say, this is what I got and I'm looking at. And we're going to go with it. We're going to see what's happening. All right. Now, as always, I'd like to start with a little bit of fun. The world is way too serious of a place. It's important to laugh. I have a fly. I don't know who this guy is. He wants to be in my shot. Everybody wants fame. All right. Needless to say, start off with something light. Let's have some fun. So, I don't know. I like the old comics. I'm into comedy. So, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but this guy, he's an OG, man. Don Rickles. Yeah, he's pretty cool. I actually got to see him live here in Vegas. 10 years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. He might have been in his 80s. I hope he's well. I'm not sure if he's still with us, but he's fantastic. You would have seen him like on the Dean Martin roast and things like that. He was brutal, but just so much fun. Everybody just really loved him. All right, if you haven't checked him out, let's get to it. Give it to him, Donnie.
Clint, I say it, nobody else has said it, and I say it from my heart. You're a lousy actor. Spielberg and all these guys at the table, we know Clint. I know you. Clint's idea of a good time is sitting on a pickup truck watching his dog bark. Mother Eastwood is laughing, knowing damn well you never had so much money in your whole life. Your son played the bass. We sat through that. Now, probably, your daughter will come up here and do the tango. But you know, Clint, and I know that I have so much on you, which I won't say tonight.
He's fantastic. Rickles he's good fun, and he never stopped. When I saw him, like I said, I think he was like in his 80s, and so much energy. Like he had to be careful because he was an active guy when he was doing his bits, but it was awesome to see him, and he's just ripping everybody in the audience. Yeah, it was good fun. All right, so let's get over to. We're going to take a look at a little piece of news here, and because we got to do some news, but this is fun news. I don't know if you've been following. The news that we're going to listen to is about the SpaceX IPO. All right, so it's actually been announced. I don't know that there's a date. I talked to my dad. He thinks it's June 12th, but I haven't heard a date. I believe it's probably more the road show that starts June 12th, so probably still somewhere around July. But needless to say, Elon Musk submitted the paperwork. So SpaceX, good fun, but I don't know if you watched today. This was kind of the fun part. Like the IPO, I'm interested. I think it's fantastic. But I don't know if you're watching because Flight 12 of SpaceX, the, what do they call that thing? What does he call it? I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, he's got a name for the rocket, but it's the biggest rocket that's ever going to lift off. It'll have the biggest payload. So to me, it's part of the roadshow. Roadshow is for an initial public offering. You have to go and talk to all the hedge funds, pension, all them, and really pitch it to get them to buy the stock. And I really think that this launch is coinciding with the actual roadshow and then inevitably the initial public offering. So anyway, let's take a look at the news. And there's a little bit. This is about the actual public offering. So if you haven't heard about it, it's pretty cool.
SpaceX taking a very big step towards what's almost certain to be the biggest IPO ever. And want to get straight over to Leslie Picker. She's got the perspective. She's been going through all of it. What do you see as the biggest highlights, Leslie?
Hey, Andrew. Good morning. Yeah, after being filed confidentially, SpaceX flipped its S1 public yesterday, giving a long-awaited peek into the 24-year-old company's financials. SpaceX generated $18.7 billion in revenue last year. That was up 33% from the prior year. In the 3 months through March, SpaceX generated $4.7 billion in revenue and a net loss of $4.3 billion, nearly the same size. The company also showed long-term debt of $29 billion. Still, SpaceX is seeking a valuation around $1.5 trillion, and that's on some of the conservative side, based on some of the sources I've spoken with. That implies a multiple of 80 times last year's revenue. But there appears to be more growth coming down the pike. SpaceX said that Anthropic will pay $1.25 billion per month through May of 2029 as part of a compute deal that was announced earlier this month, and the capacity will ramp over the next few months at a reduced fee, and this agreement can be terminated by either side with about 90 days notice. Well, most of SpaceX's revenue currently comes from Starlink, satellite business. It says in the prospectus that it has, quote, the largest actionable total addressable market, or TAM, in human history, which it quantifies at $28.5 trillion. And the biggest component to that TAM, the company says, is from AI, which it estimates at $26.5 trillion. And that would span infrastructure, consumer subscriptions, digital advertising, and enterprise applications. So this IPO, like many of the smaller listings that came before it, will hinge on the validity, or at least the investors' perceived validity, of these big dreams. Andrew.
So there's a whole bunch of other things in there, to me, that were fascinating beyond just the profits and losses, or in this case, still the losses, but just what the revenue trajectory looks like. The idea of retail investors getting access early is fascinating, and I think it's a big experiment. I'm curious what you're hearing on that front. There's the governance question. This is a company that is genuinely going to be controlled by Elon Musk. So much so that technically the company doesn't even need to have independent directors, and what you think that ultimately means. What are you hearing on those fronts?
In terms of retail, I was told that it could be up to 30% of allocations could be retail, and they list a variety of brokerages that they'll be doing that through. Morgan Stanley is directing a lot of this program. Of course, they own E-Trade as well, so you can expect that to be a key component. I had also heard that retail across the pond in maybe the UK and Canada and Japan would be a key component of this as well, kind of garnering retail support, not just here in the U.S., but also abroad. In terms of the governance, very unique here, not unlike things we've seen at other Elon Musk companies. I believe he'll have about 85% of the control after this company goes public. We should get more details about governance, too, as the filing gets amended over the course of the next few weeks. That's something that has been out in the press for a while, just the unique governance structure and the ability to remove Musk. It's something that some of the pension funds have really balked at. They're not buyers of IPOs, but they're buyers of indexes. And if this company is included in the index, they could be essentially forced owners of SpaceX. And so they said that the governance structure that had been out there in reports is something they were not fond of. Whether it's enough to really, prevent this company from filling its order book remains to be seen, but probably unlikely, just given the nature that this is SpaceX, this is Musk, and people have really gotten used to that.
Leslie, let me ask you this about the retail piece of it. There's part of me that loves it in that, you get the idea of democratizing an IPO and people getting access at least earlier than some of the institutions might otherwise, and allocating it that way can be seen as a positive. At the same time, I think there's been a question about whether you think retail investors ultimately stay in. Maybe, do they have diamond hands, if you will? And the reason I ask is Bill Ackman's IPO recently, he actually approached it by trying to offer more shares early on to retail investors, and they ultimately flipped it very quickly, and it wasn't positive. And so I just wonder what you're hearing on that front.
Yeah, no, you're spot on there. And the old school playbook for IPOs, especially big IPOs, was to really lock up a concentrated book of allocations with long-term holders that the bankers can trust and that they know won't flip it. Usually hedge funds were deprioritized. Retail was absolutely deprioritized in big listings like this. So 30% would absolutely be much larger than is typical for a deal of this size. And based on what I've heard, there is, of course, the risk of them flipping. On the flip side, I think there's this idea that retail owns a lot of Tesla, and therefore, it would make sense to extend that to SpaceX. But to your point, with these, we don't know what the float size will be quite yet. But based on the numbers that I've heard, somewhere between 50 to 75 billion, and then if the, valuation is, say, upwards of 1.5 trillion, you're looking at a really, really small float. And when you have a supply-demand dynamic like that, you do risk additional volatility, especially if you don't have as great of a sense of the trustworthiness of the people who bought in at the IPO.
Do you want to know where?
Isn't that something? All right. Well, this is what I'll say. I think it's fantastic. They're worried about people buying and then flipping, and there's going to be day traders in there that are going to go in, especially right the day of the IPO. But really, the volatility in Tesla over the last 10 years, it's insane. Like that stock really used to move a lot. Doesn't move as much as it used to. But I'm going to tell you, he's a brand. It's like Apple. People buy Apple products. They won't get rid of their Apple products. They're just going to buy new Apple products. So I don't really believe that's the case. I think some people will. They'll actually, buy some of the stock. It'll go up. They'll sell it. But myself, I'm planning on buying it and holding it because I think that the TAM, the total addressable market, is huge because he's got so much. He's 10 years ahead. And this is not my research. I listened to Kathy Wood and others that say his rocket technology is 10 years ahead of like Bezos and, I don't know, Virgin Galactic, if they're still even in the game. But he'll be the payload guy. And now hopefully tomorrow, we'll see. Today it got down to 41 seconds on the clock, and then they had to scrap it. So they're moving till tomorrow. But he's about to put up the biggest spaceship rocket ever. So the payload's going to be huge. All these companies that need satellites up are going to be basically paying him to be the bus driver to take the rockets or to take the rocket up and literally just put out all their satellites. And it's interesting when you watch the graphics on it, the thing opens up like a Pez container and it's just like pew, 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 just going to fire these satellites out. And they put in some dummy satellites, so they're going to actually practice that, after the launch they get into space. But I think it's fantastic. So he's got the rocket, and he'll be the guy who can move more rockets than anybody else. So he'll get the payload from multiple companies around the world, not just within the United States, internationally. He's going to get that. Then he's already interested in data centers in space. He's also interested in now he is putting up his own satellites for Starlink. But he's interested in putting data centers in space. The technology's not there yet. It's just an idea. But that's interesting. And then also he was talking about putting solar-powered satellites. And I'm probably not saying that correctly, but the point being, the satellite would be a solar panel that would get energy from the sun and fire it back to Earth to use as energy. And they're already able to do this. And they fire it back with lasers, but there's no better place than space for solar. Period. End of story. Like, it's just there. And they can put a satellite that sits in one place. It doesn't have to continue to revolve around the planet. So, that's that technology. Then there's the moon. He could be the guy to the moon. Now, there's other companies that have got to the moon remotely. And then NASA, of course, with Artemis 2, they got Artemis 3. It's probably going to be another 3 or 4 more flights before they land on the moon. But the moon is also a space race, okay, between China, Russia, mostly China, but I think, Russia's in there. They want to get to the moon. Do they want to do some mining, get the helium-3 out, or whatever else they want to do? And then, of course, Musk is going to be using that as a a test facility so he can go to Mars because the moon's closer. So there's so much that he can do with this, and there's a lot of money to be made. Now, what I've been saying since SpaceX thought about IPO, before I really heard any analysts talk, is that will he, Elon Musk, absorb Tesla into SpaceX? Because Musk has got just this amazing ecosystem, and all these things operate together, right? The electric vehicles, the robots, the battery storage, okay, energy production. It all comes together with the rockets and the moon landings and the satellites. So I don't know if it's going to be Tesla absorbs SpaceX or SpaceX absorbs Tesla, but that's interesting. Not to mention, right, the Cybertruck was made for Mars. It's my understanding that he built that to be on Mars. And because maybe Mars got pushed back, he's like, all right, let's just sell them to the public. All right. But needless to say, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. When it comes out, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to hold it. And I'm just going to see what happens. I think it'll be a great investment into the future. It'll be fun to watch him. He's just so outside the box with everything. And he's fun to listen to. And he gets everything kind of hyped up, even though he doesn't deliver things on time. But he's good fun. So anyway, that's today's video. I just wanted to bring that to you. I'm just doing a test here. Still trying to figure out my settings on my camera and my OBS, and then taking it through the editing process and getting it onto YouTube. So anyway, Tony Renato, Mr. Romance. You're like, wait a minute. There's no such thing as Mr. Romance. Oh, yes, there is. See you next time. Ciao for now.